Well, basically what we've got is a micro farm in the city. We've got fruit trees, we've got a veggie garden, we've got a pollinator garden. We produce a lot of food. It's a lot of work, but it's a fun little project here in the city.
So this is a backyard that is in a city, and we've turned a lot of it into a garden. We also have 18 fruit trees, and so we get a lot of fruit as well as grapes, and we have a pollinator garden with flowers and grasses and shrubs that are native to Ontario. I would call it a micro farm, a micro orchard, a mixture of both. So we produce a lot of food over the course of the year, everything from tomatoes to beans to grapes to arugula and lettuce and a little salad section, things that we pickle. And it helps that we're also able to cut down our grocery bills because we are producing a lot of food here.
So much so that we actually have to give away a lot of it. So we donate a lot to food banks and charities. We give a lot to our friends. We barter for like bottles of wine. And then we also give a lot to farm animals, so all the fallen fruit and stuff like that. It's so much. So we found a farmer and we gave it to his pigs and cows and chickens and things. So basically, Aileen and I got the house about 3 years ago. We knew it was a bit of a fixer-upper house, and it was quite an empty backyard. I mean, there were a few trees, but there was really nothing else back here. So it was a nice clean slate. It was something to work with. When we moved in, we didn't even know they were fruit trees. So we actually, not until they started blooming and producing fruit, and we were like, what's this one going to be? So it was really a level of discovery too that was we didn't expect. We had 18 fruit trees and a large garden patch. And so we started planting veggies and just realized now we're farmers and we're gonna just have to deal with this.
The backyard is about 1/8 of an acre.
And the garden space is about 700 square feet.
We had some challenges growing in the beginning. We're on really heavy clay here, and once it gets hot in the summer, the clay just dries out and it has these big cracks in it, and it's not the most ideal condition for root growth. And so in the second year, we decided to bring in more soil. So we essentially raised the garden with one big raised bed.
We ordered 20 cubic yards of a really good garden soil. We put out a couple tarps on the driveway, and we didn't realize it was going to be this much, but they just dumped the whole dump truck right in the driveway, and then we had to truck it all to the back. We did it by hand with a wheelbarrow and a shovel, and probably 300 so trips to the backyard, and we filled up the whole garden box, put this great soil, and then we actually covered it with cardboard and stuff to keep the weeds down.
And we even added a little bit of fertilizer in that year. And let me tell you, fertilizer and good soil works. The plants just took off.
One of the things that I think is really important to both of us is to try not to spend too much money on all of this, to be frugal, to reuse and repurpose a lot of the materials that you can find everywhere these days. There's a lot of online social media communities that'll be people who are just giving away great stuff, and in return we give away lots of great stuff.
So Marc's a bit of a garbage hunter / scavenger, and so he's really good at finding free things. Like all the pots that we use on the property are all from recycling bins, and the furniture, a lot of it is secondhand. And so he found a lot of wood that is all reclaimed.
That's the wood we've built to do everything back here, is just found free wood. And I work my magic and I make some cool things back here. Okay, well, welcome to the yard. This is HogsBackYard. This is the backyard area. Here we've got the orchard part. So we've got the mulberry trees, followed by pear trees, cherry trees, and apple trees. And then over to the left here behind this this fence is our garden, the veggie garden section. So right here is actually the wash station. So that's where we usually wash people down if they've gotten too dirty and sweaty. Up here is the lookout tower, and that's nice because we can climb up it, and that's a nice place to go and watch the sunsets in the evening. In the middle here, we got this little fire pit area where sometimes we'll have a little fire with our friends. So this is a chunk of the garden here. So of course we've got my tomatoes that I'm a little obsessive about. I like growing my tomatoes, but we've also got other things. We've got peppers, we've got Brussels sprouts, and this is something interesting that I've been working on. It's actually called the pomato. So in the bucket we've grown potatoes, but then what I've done is I've cut off one of the potato green parts and grafted on a tomato plant. So underneath is potatoes, and at the top is tomatoes, and that gives you a really nice product. It's a potato with its own ketchup built in. Over here we've got my first shack that I ever built. This is made entirely out of found reclaimed wood and reclaimed windows and found parts. So it cost me about 75 bucks in screws. And that was about it. And if you check out inside there, I've got a nice little wood burning stove. So in the winter time, we like to go in there and have a nice cup of hot cocoa and by the fire and chill with some friends. So this is basically an entrance or an exit to the garden right here. It's about 60 feet deep. We've got our blueberries here, followed by asparagus alley, followed by a bunch of other things. It's all a little rickety. I'd recommend having your tetanus shot if you're going to come into my yard here. One of the first things I had to figure out was how I was going to water this whole garden. Initially I did it with a handheld hose, and that took me about an hour, so I need to speed that up a bit. So what I did was I made these modular little sprinkler systems that basically I got a bunch of free hoses. There's 5 of these, 5 free hoses, 5 sprinkler systems that I just mount right on top of a post like that. And I got a little control switch over here that I can kind of get each of the sprinklers going for a certain amount of time. We got our little cucumber racks right here. And here you can see this is new this year actually. It's the scaffolding for my tomatoes. So we set up a couple beams that I found in the garbage, a couple rods from a gazebo that somebody was throwing out, and started stringing up all of my tomatoes. So an easy way to keep the weeds out is to put down some landscaping fabric. So this allows moisture to penetrate, but it also keeps the weeds down. So that was an important thing that I also added this year, and I'll probably spread it to the rest of the garden. And so this is basically the control module for the watering system. So I've got several rain barrels and the water's being pumped into this little device right here. And basically I can just turn off and on all the 5 different things. So basically I'll turn one on, set a timer for 5 minutes, go off and do something in the yard, come back when the alarm goes off, switch it to the next one. And that way I keep the same water pressure going through each of the different towers, the water towers. So this is a super helpful device. And one of the bigger problems too that you may be facing at home as well is that when you have a hose stretching across something on a hot day, it folds over, it creases, and then it stops the water from coming through. So this has worked like a charm. I just tie the hose to the wheel, and then that way it never creases and it never folds over. So very handy.
So this section of the garden that's a little bit closer to the house is, we like to call it our salad section. It's not only salad, but that's what a lot of it is. So we have some of the things like the edible flowers. We have lemongrass, that's more for tea, not really for salads, but still is in this section. There's a couple cabbage, some kohlrabi, arugula, peppers, all sorts of things. One thing I want to point out, the garden is a little bit more spaced out in this section, and that's because we were growing shorter rotation crops. Things like radishes and beets in this section and growing them quite densely in order to try to keep down weeds. But those crops are now finished, except for I think 1 or 2, which I had forgotten about and I found quite recently. And if I were more organized, I would be starting my seeds to do a fall planting, but that might not happen this year, but that's okay. Over here we have some green onions, and so those are really delicious to eat raw, or we also freeze some of them. This I like to call my dill forest. Believe it or not, it's actually all weeds. So last year I had a dill here that I wanted to keep the seeds from, so I let it go to seed, and I guess I missed some of them because this is what happened this year. We also have Brussels sprouts, cucumbers, zucchini, all sorts of things, beans. I haven't named every single thing we have in this garden, but we're always trying something new, and who knows what will grow next year.
This is where we put all our good dirt And this is the seed repotting station. So when we bring our seedlings out, we kind of set them all up here. We got our dirt here and we kind of put them in the new containers for the bigger containers. We can brush all the dirt back into our station and then move on with wherever we want to put those plants. One of the other new things we tried doing this year was putting potatoes in buckets. But basically, if you put your potatoes in the bucket, in the soil, and then I can dump this whole thing out into my teenage dirt bucket over here, like this. And if we're lucky, oh, look at all the potatoes we got. Look at this, Potato City. So that's great. You know, we got nice fresh potatoes. I've got 35 basil plants because I love my pesto, so that's very important to me. So one thing that I learned over time too was to get the basil out of the sun. So I was putting it in full sunlight and it would bolt to seed right away. So now I've moved it kind of closer into a bit of a shadier area. This is another thing that we inherited from the previous owner, but it is some scaffolding with some Concord purple and green grapes. Quite delicious if you're into Welch's grape juice. But if you come have a look, you can see that it's just full of grapes under here. So we usually invite our mums and our aunts and anyone else who wants to make jam with this. They come and they take all the grapes and then they come back bringing us a few jars of grape jam. So we're happy with that. So this is just a few of my rain barrels. So what happens is the rain comes down on the roof, comes out of the gutters here and directly down into this barrel, and then when it overflows it goes into the next barrel, and when it overflows it goes into the next barrel. I've set about 13 rain barrels up around the property, so at every corner there's rain barrels set to collect all the water. And then I've got pumps like this guy here, and basically that pumps the water all through the property. So I've got hoses rigged around the place that again that I picked up all on garbage days, buy nothing communities, and for free. So that saves us a lot of money. And then over here we've got the greenhouse. This is actually, I'm really happy about this one. All made with recycled found wood again. I found mirrors. The found door, I found the door on garbage day. I was like, I needed a nice French door, and there it was. And then the windows, the stained glass windows are actually a nice bit. It's from guys who own a local brewery beyond the pale. Rob gave me these windows from his parents' house just to help me out to build this thing. So right now we're drying out different things, different seeds. But you notice it's really hot in here. So I do keep a little temperature gauge. Oh my goodness, right now it's 37 degrees in here. So it's a little hot for the summertime. But also to make it hot in the springtime, I built a solar powered pop can heater that heats it. So these are the vents you can see right here. Basically I took a bunch of pop cans, beer cans, spray painted them all black, put it under glass, and I have two little computer fans that blow the heat. So when the sun comes out, it warms up the cans. The cans are all perforated so that the heat goes straight up on through. And in the springtime, you can have maybe a 5°C day here, which is pretty cold, near freezing. But inside it's 17 to 25 degrees, and that's just from the sun. So basically I got all my flowers started in there and they were way ahead of the game.
We start our seedlings inside with grow lights. It sort of takes over our living room for part of the year, but that's okay, it's fun.
We've built shelving specifically for seeds, but then it had to expand into tables in the living room and more indoor lights. I like actually get the seeds starting a little bit too early sometimes. It's usually the end of February.
For the most part, we grow all of our own vegetables from seed. We get a lot of seeds for free from seed exchange events. And I do save seeds because usually a plant will produce abundant seeds in 1 year. And so, for example, this year I saved some seeds, the kale and arugula as well. And I think there'll be others that we're saving this year.
We are dedicating way too much time to this project. I think I wake up every morning at like 6:30 in the morning. I come out and water, I prune, I weed. And you know, it's rewarding, but it's also a labor of love. You know, you do have to have time on your hands. And fortunately, I've got slower summers when it comes to my workload at work.
Yeah, I mean, it's not constant throughout the year, but in the summer and in the fall, it's every day, at least a couple hours. You know, I come home from work and I'm out in the garden. And I do enjoy it, and it's a nice way to stay active, but it sort of becomes one of your only hobbies, I would say, which is nice. But certainly there's points in the year where it can be pretty overwhelming. For example, when you have a large harvest of something, for example, with our fruit trees, sometimes it's raining apples or pears and you have to get out there, and if you leave them on the ground, you just get overtaken by wasps, and you need to be managing them every day. And when they're ripe, you want to be preserving them as quickly as you can, or giving them away or what have you, making sure that they're being used somehow.
So just to give you an idea, we had in our first year, it happened to be a bumper crop year, we had 425 pounds of apples and pears, 60 pounds of grapes, 40 pounds of plums, and there was just no way that the two of us could have managed this. So here in our city, we have a little group called Hidden Harvest, and it's a community of volunteers, and what they do is they come into your backyard and they will harvest all of the fruit for you, and then you get 1/3 of it. The volunteers take 1/3 of it, and then they give 1/3 of it to food banks and charities. So we thought this is a great thing, you know. But even we started delivering some ourselves. We took it to the food bank and filling community cupboards, and no, people were very grateful for our fruit. It's delicious fruit, they told us, so that was nice too. I love the fact that we can grow the food, we process the food, we know where it came from, we know there were no pesticides used in it, because that's something that bothers me, a lot of the preservatives and things that are in food today. So we know it's good food and healthy food, and we eat it all year long, really. The smoothies, the pestos, the pasta sauces, we just use it all through the winter.
I learned how to can food after getting this yard, which was a new thing for me. So, you know, sterilizing the cans and making salsas, making marinara sauces. Last year we had a whack of tomatoes, so there was a lot of tomato-based sauces that came out of our kitchen. We freeze a lot of things. I pickle as well, that's always been really fun. And I also dehydrate food.
We both came into this not really knowing much about preserving food, processing food, or farming for that matter. And so to watch Aileen's mom showed her how to do all the canning, you know, and then my dad's Italian, so he was all about the pasta sauces and stuff like that. And my dad comes over and picks the basil, and you know, so we're having these really cute moments where we're processing food with our families too.
We freeze a lot of the products instead of canning them because it's a good option for us. And so this is some of the food that's left over from last year's harvest. So as you can see, we still have a lot to eat, and a little bit from this year's harvest. So we have things like zucchini, and this is tomato sauce from last year, things that are already made into foods. Here we have some apple butter, we got some apple cider, we have jams, we have grapes, we have all sorts of berries and fruits, apples, and as well as some things that have already been made into products. So this is zucchini loaf. We have a couple jars of pesto, and so just to show the scale that this is some of what we have both from this year and last year. So some of the challenges that we deal with, one of the big ones is that we're sort of stuck here, especially in the summer, even in the spring when we're starting our seeds. You know, if we leave, the plants will die. In the summer, at least one of us needs to be here pretty much all the time in order to water the plants when they're hot and just generally take care of the place. So that's difficult. It can be hot as well, like on a day like today, it's really warm. And so working outside in these conditions can be really difficult, you know, in heat waves.
I think some of the other challenges too is, for example, this summer even we had a lot of heat and a lot of water. It just rained and rained and rained. So tomatoes don't like a lot of water. It makes blights start to arrive. And so that's some of the challenges, of the frustrations would be definitely weather related.
Like in any garden, we do have pests that come by sometimes. We're creating habitat, and so to some degree that's expected. One creature I've been dealing with a lot this year is the Japanese beetles, which are an invasive insect in this part of the world. And so I manage them in the way that I can, which is to kind of dunk them into soapy water.
Sometimes we also get the occasional bunny or raccoon. One of the things I did do to get rid of actually the squirrels, and it really does work, is to get these plastic owls. And at first I'd put them on a fence line, and the squirrels were just running right by it. So then I put some really scary, I pasted feathers, like really dark, angry eyebrows on the owl, and that still didn't work. The squirrels just went right. I'm like, how is such an angry looking owl? But they didn't seem to mind. But then I found out that you have to put the owl on a post. It's got to look perched, and so I've now set up 3 or 4 different owls all over the yard, and we have very few pests now.
So this is the Pollinator garden. As you can see, it's certified by the Canadian Wildlife Federation. To be honest, it's not a very strenuous process to get certified, but I am happy to have the sign because it's helpful to tell people who are walking by why at times of the year the garden looks a little bit messy. Right now it's beautiful and filled with flowers. Here we have some bee balm. There's lots of other great plants, calendula. I won't go into everything, but just to say that these types of gardens are filled with plants that are native to a particular region and that have established relationships with the pollinators and insects of that region to help them thrive. I was studying forestry and I'm now an urban forester, and so this place has been truly a site of experimentation and learning to work with trees. So this is my mini tree nursery. All of these trees were either started from seed by myself or some of my neighbors, or they started as a weed in the garden, and instead of pulling it up, I potted it up and put it here. I'm using some of these trees in tree planting projects in my community, and so it's been really nice to be able to have some space to dedicate to that.
I do a lot of creative endeavors outside of this farming life. I got my bachelor degree in fine arts, so my paintings depict a lot of the contemporary issues and dystopian issues that we're dealing with today. And it's nice to be able to kind of bring it in. I think it's a very creative process to be laying out your yards and landscaping and picking the plants and colors you want all over the place. So yeah, it'd be nice maybe one day getting artists to come in here and paint in the back or something creative and community oriented outside of the fruits and vegetables maybe. When Aileen and I moved in, we saw we had all this stuff and we're like, oh my gosh, we're gonna totally go to food markets with our little baskets of vegetables and fruit, and we're gonna create a logo and a website and go to farmers markets, and we're gonna be, this homegrown farming kind of thing. And then we just realized how much time this took, just the processing of it all. So, we still have a website and we have an Instagram account, and we do post a lot of what we're doing here, but the selling angle is way on the back burner because there's just no time. I mean, we both work full time, so this is just it's a little hobby that's gone berserk, and so we're just taking it easy for now. But it was a dream of ours to do all these fun things.
It feels really nice to be able to see something from seed all the way to becoming something that we would eat. So that's been really interesting, learning more about plant life cycles. It's been definitely an educational process, so it's been fun.
Subscribe to Exploring Alternatives, and please share this video if you liked it. You can also follow Marc and Aileen on Instagram at HogsBackYard. And for more of Marc's artwork, you can check out his website at adornado.ca. Thanks for watching.